Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by Popeyes and powered by Ram Trucks.
I don't know if we're the three amigos or the three best friends that anybody could have, but it's week 3, and 3 seems to be the feel and the vibe for Fantasy Football Live. We are here and ready to get you ready for kickoff. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out with Andy Barons, Matt Harmon. You know the drill by now. We're going to take you all the way up to kickoff for Thursday Night Football. We're going to get your roster set for tonight, but also we're going to make sure that you're caught up on everything you need to know for the entire weekend. If you have questions for us, hit us with hashtag AskFFL. So I'm just going to start us right out of the gates here. And just, Andy, if I go hashtag AskFFL, the hell am I doing? Like 2 straight weeks, we've gone into this contest that we have internally. We'll do it later. We got a snake draft where we're picking our primetime players. 2 straight weeks, I haven't just gotten kicked. I've gotten my ass whooped. I mean, like, what am I supposed to text you guys for advice now on how to compete against you guys?
Well, you know, your problem last week is that the people loved your draft. Like, they really loved your draft. We blasted out the tweet with the picture of the rosters, and I don't know, it was 97, 98% fits. That, like, I don't know, in my experience anyway, when people love one of my drafts, I can just write off that team. That team is done. That team is dead. That was the signal.
I felt like the people's champion, Harmon. I don't know. I was the people's champion, and now I'm just reminded that the people's champion can never beat this show's Ron Swanson, which you are. I mean, the beard, this show's real, man. It coming in strong. You kicked my ass again.
Well, number 1, thank you. I've never felt better about anything in my entire life. Number 2, yeah, dude, I even said on the show, I was like, I don't know, Fitz's lineup looks great. You know, A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, Tyreek Hill coming off a 200-yard game. I was even like, you know, kind of intimidated. And then, you know, by the end of the game, we got A.J. Brown like, hey, Jalen Hurts, don't forget to throw to me. Don't forget to throw to me. Meanwhile, I'm like, no, keep forgetting about everybody on Fitz's team. So this is great. Things are going well on the show so far.
The number of times that I sat there and yelled at my TV for plays that were completely inconsequential to the game, but I knew were going to be my downfall, it's not healthy. What I do know is that you want to watch our snake draft and then just go against me on everything. We're going to get to that. But we start, obviously, with Thursday Night Football. Thursday night, yeah, shading me all the time is easy. Thursday Night Football, it's going to be a matchup. I'll say it that way. The Giants at 1-1 take it on the 49ers, who are undefeated. That is not a misprint on the screen. The points on this 43.5, but the 49ers are a 10.5-point favorite. So you talk about, like, the expectation on this is straight up a butt whooping, right? Like, at some point, the Vegas and most fans, Matt, seem to think that this game is going to get out of hand.
Yeah, and the 49ers aren't even going to have, you know, top 5 NFL receiver Brandon Ayuk. Boom! That's how we're starting off the show today. No, but on a serious note, I think one of the biggest things here is that we gotta look at, you know, Brock Purdy and how well he's playing so far. Like, this guy's been legit good. We think of him as like a cookie cutter little game manager, but he has not been that so far this year. He's actually has the 3rd most dropbacks against pressure so far. Like, things have been not great for Purdy. Like, he's been playing outside of himself despite that pressure dropback rate, which, by the way, is only behind Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones. Those guys don't count because they've played the Cowboys. He has a 0% check down rate and the 3rd lowest percentage of his yards coming from yards after the catch. Like, this guy isn't playing like a game manager. He's playing at an extremely high level, which is, I think, why there's so much public and betting confidence in the 49ers right now.
Yeah, and look, the actives and inactives, the sheet that was just up there a second ago showed you, obviously, no Saquon. We know that. Obviously, no Brandon Ayuk. We know that. But I want to focus on the no Saquon portion of this for just a second, because there's something significant here when you look at that. Saquon out with what they're calling just a normal ankle injury, normal sprained ankle, not a high ankle sprain, an important difference. But it really raises a question for me tonight what we're looking for of who's going to pick up the load for the Giants, because I think the Giants offense actually has some weapons that they should be excited about. Darren Waller is a difference maker when he is healthy, depending on those hamstrings. He can absolutely take down anybody. I love what Darren Waller can be. But the question is, and I love Jalen Hyatt too, the draft pick out of Tennessee. I picked him up in one of my keeper leagues because I think he has the chance to grow into something special. The question is, if you heap all of this on Daniel Jones, can he take advantage of the weapons that he has? This is not the Giants of last year where the conversation was, well, they don't really have anybody for Daniel Jones to throw to. I think they do have difference-making weapons. We will find out tonight if the Giants trust Daniel Jones as much as that contract implies they trust Daniel Jones, because you got to be able to go out and win some of these games. So I think that's going to be interesting. Andy, what do you have your eyes on in this matchup?
Well, you probably don't need me to tell you to start Christian McCaffrey, first of all. But I do think it's worth noting that that guy did not come off the field in week 2. Like, literally played every offensive snap for the Niners, had 23 touches. He played 85% of the snaps the week before, too. This is Carolina-era usage for McCaffrey. It doesn't seem like it can hold. It doesn't seem like it should hold. Last season, in games in which both McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell were healthy, McCaffrey averaged 15.5 touches. Mitchell was getting 11. It was a little bit of a committee, obviously in favor of McCaffrey. They just gotta think about getting to, December, January with a fully operational, fully healthy Christian McCaffrey. I'm just really surprised at that usage so far. I think it probably tilts a little bit into Mitchell's favor this week, which, he didn't play at all last week. So anything at all would be promising if you've got Mitchell stashed somewhere. But this sets up as a game where we should see some Mitchell in the second half, right? If the game holds to form, if it's a double-digit margin, we should get somebody other than Christian McCaffrey in that backfield for a minute.
I want to lean on you guys for a second on this before we move on. And philosophical question. This is supposed to be a blowout. So when you're looking at your fantasy lineup and we're projecting a blowout, how do you let the projected outcome impact what we think here? Because it seems to me like there could be a lot of garbage time action in the second half that piles up some yards and points for the Giants. And I don't know what to do with Christian McCaffrey, because if they're up by 2-3 touchdowns in the second half, will he get less usage? So Matt, when you're looking at a game that's a blowout, does it change the way you project your fantasy lineup?
Well, I think you could definitely say, they might be in more run heavy game scripts, like in the third quarter and stuff like that. But sometimes I think this is a common question. I think we tend to overthink this a little bit, because if you're saying, this game is going to be a blowout and they're going to score 2 to 3 touchdowns. I mean, who do we think is scoring those 2 to 3 touchdowns? It's probably going to be a lot of the main guys that we're thinking about. And look, maybe you could get super unlucky and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and then Juwan Jennings are all the guys that score the touchdowns, and Christian McCaffrey never finds the end zone. But regardless, if they're having such a big offensive performance that the 49ers are just cutting up the Giants in this one, Christian McCaffrey and basically any of the main fantasy players here have probably been a part of it. So I don't really let it make too much of an impact on my lineup decisions to that level.
Andy, do you? Let's get both experts in on this.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is that we're so often wrong when we start talking about what the game flow is going to be and when we decide we know how a game is going to play out. I can't really wrap my head around the idea that the Giants are going to make this super competitive deep into the game, but we're wrong all the time, right? The NFL is just a chaos league. But to Matt's point, if the Niners are going to get to, if you think this is going to be a 30-10 game, something like that, the Niners have to get there somehow, and there's no way that Christian McCaffrey isn't going to be a big part of that. You didn't draft Christian McCaffrey because you thought he might get a lot of garbage time carries and touches late in games. I mean, you drafted him because he's a centerpiece player on what should be one of the NFL's best offenses, and it has worked out perfectly so far. He's been one of the absolute right answers in fantasy. So I'm definitely not pivoting away from my best Niners in this one.
I'm still trying to figure out why so many of us are wrong about our favorite teams in the wrong direction. Just once I want to be wrong where it's I thought we were going to get our butts kicked. Oh, it turns out it was competitive. No, but the opposite happens all the time. All right, so let's take a look at some props out there. A lot of action going on for Thursday Night Football. We're going to find some player props that we like, and we'll start with Andy. Andy, give us a prop that you like for tonight's game.
Yeah, now, I agree with everything that Matt said about Brock Purdy. He's playing really well, and he's certainly not just a game manager, but I really like the under on his completions in this one. The number is 20.5. And again, look, I think he's really fun. I'm starting him in Superflex leagues this week. I kind of like the over on 1.5 passing touchdowns, but in a game that shouldn't really require Purdy to keep passing throughout, I doubt he reaches 20 completions in this. He has 10 NFL starts, postseason included, and he's only gone over this total one time in those starts. So this is not something that this is not something that he's routinely doing anyway. Purdy only rarely attempts 30 passes in a game. Again, the Niners are 10.5-point favorites. This one feels like a bit of a gift to me.
All right, I'll give you one that I like out there. And, this part of the show I've been doing well with so far, making a little money on the props. So I'll give myself some props there. But I like the prop of Daniel Jones over 1.5 passing touchdowns. And I like that because two things. We saw in week 1 when they were just getting killed by the Cowboys that Daniel Jones was in there the entire time. So even though they're getting killed, I don't have to worry about the quarterback being pulled. He'll get a normal touchdown in this game early on, and we'll say, oh, maybe this is going to be plucky. And then it's not, right? And then when this whole thing's out of hand, all he needs is one garbage time touchdown, and bam, time to 2. I think that there are going to be garbage time yards in the third and fourth quarter for the Giants that, keeps them sort of in this game, at least on the stats side of it. Daniel Jones getting to two passing touchdowns seems pretty easy to me. So, Matt, what do you got your eye on for a prop?
Yeah, I'll stick in the Daniel Jones zone here, and because we've been getting the questions all week. All right, Saquon Barkley's not going to play. Saquon Barkley's not going to play. Who's the backup running back to have on the Giants roster? Well, tell you what, if you got to start like Matt Breida or any of these guys, your fantasy team is probably screwed. So I'm actually going to take the over here on Daniel Jones, 37.5 rushing yards, because I think he's probably the one that gets the rushing boost with no Saquon Barkley. And this is crazy because Jones has actually cleared this number in both games so far this year. And we've seen him do it in 2 different game scripts. One, they're getting crushed. They're getting killed by the Dallas Cowboys in week 1. Still got over on it. And then in a comeback sort of effort, which they very well might be in this game as well, he got over it with the Cardinals matchup last week. Jones is a great rushing quarterback. I think this line is just simply too low.
I love that call, by the way. It matches something I said a couple of weeks ago, that Vegas seems to be slow to react to rushing yardage and rushing attempts for quarterbacks capable of rushing on Thursday Night Football. So I actually love that. I don't love the headshot, though, here. Maybe I'm too worried about photos, but look, I'm not a particularly photogenic guy. I feel like you got to take my picture 300 times, and I'm looking at somebody saying, not that one, not that one. Did Daniel Jones just give up that day? that can't be the best shot of Daniel Jones. Andy, tell me that you would ask for another picture, right?
Wow, you think I'm that vain? I don't think I've ever actually taken a photo that's that good, where I'm actually looking at the camera. I would settle for that one in a second.
There's no way. Harmon, you wouldn't settle for it. I can't be the only one that would ask for a retake of the picture, right? Harmon, back me up on this.
Yeah, no chance. Come on. Look, I think Daniel Jones is a much more handsome fella than this picture indicates here. So, yeah, this reminds me of that scene in The Office when Daniel, he's fine. He's fine. When Toby sits down after that long, HR day, he says, just take it, the ID photo, and he's, kind of halfway out of the camera. That's what this reminds me of. Daniel Jones just broke through, goes, just take it, and then he walks out. Yeah, I think he can do better.
Look, I will be perfectly honest with the world that doesn't really care about this, but I have to share it anyway. So when I first started back years ago at ESPN, I walked into the little office. I didn't know they were going to take my picture, and they took this tiny picture. My head was this big, and so on the badge that you have, everybody gets these badges. My head was this weird, small, and they would never take another picture. I could never get one. So when I started at Yahoo, and they were like, "Hey, do you have a picture for your badge?" Oh yeah, I sent in a headshot. I actually sent a professional. I'm like, I want this one. I will size it out however you want, because I don't want people to laugh. I'm just saying, Andy, you got to give yourself more credit. You're a good looking guy. You can get a better headshot than that. Okay, moving on. Fine. We will. All right, it's time to take a look at our fantasy game changers this week, powered by Ram Trucks. You know the drill at this point. We come up with some great words that describe Ram Trucks, and we give you players that remind us of those descriptors. We will start with Andy. Who do you think will be a capable option in week 3?
Yeah, capability is the word that I'm associating with Jerome Ford, the second-year back who's now taking over for Nick Chubb in Cleveland. Some will say that I'm sort of wish casting here because I blew all my fab on him in multiple leagues, but I assure you that is not simply the case. This is a good back who ran for over 100 yards after Chubb's exit on Monday, had 69 on one play, caught a touchdown immediately after the injury. He was a great back at the collegiate level. Gained over 1,500 yards, scored 20 touchdowns for that 13-win Cincinnati team a couple years ago. Kevin Stefanski has made it pretty clear this week that Ford is lead back moving forward with Kareem Hunt now in a supporting role. They had the opportunity to keep Kareem Hunt in the fold in the offseason. They chose Ford. So I think that's pretty strong endorsement. Would I like to see a matchup this week a little bit easier than Tennessee? Sure. But I think we can be confident at least in the workload.
I like that a lot. Okay, Matt, your word, powerful. I feel like this is like one of those, game shows. Powerful. What do you got for us?
And when I think powerful, I think Nico Collins, man. This guy, I've been talking about Nico Collins, like trying to make Nico Collins happen basically since like midway through his rookie year. The in-season reception perception report was really kind to him that rookie year. I've been a big fan of his talent, but it is all coming together here in year 3 for the Texans wide receiver. He's 4th in the NFL in air yards. CJ Stroud is pushing it to him downfield. He's crushing it on these like crucial X receiver routes in this Shanahan style offense that Bobby Slowick has brought down to Houston. We get caught up in like the gadgety and the after catch and the spacey stuff with this offense, but it really functions best, Fitz, when it has a true number 1 alpha type X receiver beating press man coverage on the outside. That's what Nico Collins is doing right now. And I bring powerful up here because he's playing bully ball after the catch too. I can't express enough how impressed I am with how this guy's playing right now.
I'm just shooketh by this level of passion for Nico Collins. I love every ounce of it. All right, so let's go next to trustworthy. Andy, the word is trustworthy.
Yeah, trustworthy feels like the right word for Kirk Cousins. You'd trust a guy like Kirk to like watch your dog while you're out of town, right? To help with a move, something like that. He is trustworthy. He has also passed for a league-high 6 touchdowns and over 700 yards in his first 2 games. He's the guy throwing to Justin Jefferson. He's the guy throwing to Jordan Addison. He's in a fantastic situation. He's also, this week, facing a Chargers defense in a battle of teams that sort of desperately need wins. And the Chargers have allowed a league worst 333 passing yards per game, over 10 yards per pass attempt this season. So I think there's another big one coming for Kirk. I think we're looking at about 320, couple of touchdowns here.
By the way, shameless plug for Zero Blitz, one of our shows on Yahoo Sports. You can check out. Mike Lombardi was with me today, and he said if the Chargers lose this game, hot seat goes into full effect. They'd be looking for a new coach. So, I'm with you on this one. All right, no matter what you're looking for in a light-duty truck, the 2023 Ram 1500 has you covered. Score yours at ram.com. Now, gentlemen, we're gonna help some people at this point. We're gonna help people with their lineups as we promised. Remember, hashtag AskFFL. You can also chime in the app. You can chime in all over the place. We'll help you with some of your tough flex decisions with multiple players for users submitted through social media. Let's go first to Drea. Drea wants in on the fun, and Drea says Pickens, Flowers, Williams, Robinson, Connor need to pick RB2 and flex in a PPR league. Hashtag AskFFL. All right, Andy, what do you got for us on this one?
Man, this is a good list of names. This is a tough question. It is close at running back because Brian Robinson has played really well and he's really taken over that job. But I'm actually going to go Javonte Williams here. I think he's looked great, especially relative to expectations coming off that injury. He's got a fantastic matchup against Miami. They give up almost 5 yards per carry on the ground. And then at receiver, it's so close. I really like both these guys. I bet I have them back-to-back in the ranks. I'm going to go Zay Flowers. He just, again, I know I've said it before, but he just looks like a star to me. I think I felt like I was pretty bullish on him coming into the season, and I'm going to end up wrong because he's way better. He gets Indianapolis this week, and they're giving up almost 300 yards passing per game.
All right, let's pull up another question here, and this one comes from D-Man FF. Demand? We'll go with that. Pick 2 to start. Half-point PPR. Cook, White, Miller, Christian Watson, assuming he plays. That's a big assumption. So, Matt, what do you got on that one?
Man, Andy got to ask such a much better question. Or he got to answer a much better question. This one is much more challenging. I feel like the one guy I feel very good about here is James Cook, who had over 150 total yards last week. I know he didn't get the touchdowns. If you saw Latavius Murray and Damian Harris, you're probably pretty tilted about that. You saw those guys score the touchdowns. I don't care. He had over 150 total yards. Most of it was thanks to Fitz's Raiders, but regardless, I think Cook has really established himself as the top back here, and you got to feel pretty good about him. He stands out to me above all these other options. Yeah, if it's Christian Watson available, he plays. He's probably the other pick here, but if not, you can at least have Rachaad White to fall back to on Monday Night Football. Don't feel as good about him going against the Eagles and not going against Andy's unserious Chicago Bears there. But I still think you got to go White over Kendre Miller just because he's a rookie. We haven't seen him. We have no idea what his role is going to be.
I mean, we're just sitting here, just catching stray after stray after stray on this. Has it occurred to you at any point, good sir, that maybe the Bills are just that good? And week 1, they weren't awake yet. And week 2, they were awake. And that's why they're going to make everybody look that bad. And maybe it's not on the, you know what? We're going to move on.
Both things can be true. Both things can be true.
You were right about the Bears, though. All right, Andy, we'll let you chime in on this one. Jeff says, standard league double flex pick 2, Jerome Ford, Joshua Kelly, Breece Hall, or Zay Flowers. What you got on that one?
First of all, I know you don't think I'm going to defend the Bears. I most certainly am not. They can catch all the strays that you guys have. I'm gonna actually start with Josh Kelly here, and this is assuming that Austin Eckler doesn't play. It seems like he's making progress, but may not be ready to go. He gets the Vikings defense, and this is a super friendly matchup. This is a game where the total is like 54. We expect a lot of points here, so I think Josh Kelly should be a strong start. And then if this is indeed a standard league with like no points for receptions, I'd probably lean Jerome Ford because I think the workload is definitely going to be there. I don't know if it's going to be one of those super efficient outings necessarily because, again, it's Tennessee, but I expect the game to be close and for him to see something like 18 or 20 touches.
All right, let's get one more in here for now. And again, we can keep them coming. Hashtag AskFFL. This one says 2 running back spots between Mostert, Swift, Kyren Williams, Madison, Joshua Kelly. What do you think, Matt?
Man, I wish I had a running back core that was this tough to pick from. Usually I've got maybe 1.5 guys I feel pretty good about. There's a lot of dudes I feel pretty good about here. I think the one guy you've got to go with, and I know we're going to talk about him plenty on the show today, so I won't go into too much detail. Kyren Williams, the guy is just playing a ton. He saw 10 targets last week. He's playing in a perfect offense for a back of his skill set, so he's my top pick here. All these other guys, again, very close, good options. I think if we get some more clarity that Boston Scott and or Kenny Gainwell's going to miss Monday Night Football, DeAndre Swift would be my pick. But man, Raheem Mostert right now is just playing so well. He's owning that backfield basically all to himself. There's injuries behind him. Devin Achane's not ready to take any work on yet. And look, sometimes fantasy football can be simple. You got a back who's explosive and he's tethered to a really good offense. You play that guy every single week. And that's basically where we're at with Raheem Mostert.
All right, you guys can keep the questions coming. We'll get to more of them. But coming up, there are 2 types of busts. The good ones in Canton and the bad ones playing running back in the NFL this year. We'll look at the latter of the 2 coming up next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. We got some chatter out there in the app, and this is what people are saying in the discussion boards. Jameer Gibbs, Dameon Pierce, Josh Jacobs, all getting a little bit. Gibbs, if Gibbs isn't getting 15-plus touches and 5-plus targets this Sunday, Campbell Noodle Soup shouldn't even consider being a coach. That's the line of the day from Philip. I'm just saying, I love that line. Like, if we're going to make a nickname, Campbell Noodle Soup, I'm all in on that one, Matt. That feels like a good nickname for Dan Campbell.
Yeah. I'd love to see Philip say that to Dan Campbell's face, okay? Maybe, hey, get off the app, Put that thing down and go look at Man Campbell right in the face and say that to him. I freaking dare you, Philip. I mean, hey, thanks for being a supportive user of Yahoo and all of our products. That's great, but come on, maybe wise up here.
I mean, there's nothing. You got to be able to say it with your chest when you're saying it with your fingers. All right, I want to get your takes, though, on some of the running backs out there right now that are struggling, because early on in the year, there's several of them. Let's start with one of the guys that's in every one of my fantasy football leagues and just weekly disappointment so far, Dameon Pierce. Like, Andy, what's going on with Dameon Pierce?
Yeah, this one might be a real problem, right? Because Houston was, first of all, Houston down 4 offensive linemen last week, so the offensive line not great, kind of getting patched together. The other problem here is that Pierce hasn't yet played 50% of the snaps in either game. He does have 30 touches on the season, but he's not going to be that high volume receiving guy. The line play has been very poor, and they're totally willing to let CJ Stroud, like rookie quarterback, throw the ball 45, 47 times, which is really exciting. They have a receiving core, right? Nico Collins has been great. Tank Dell has been great. Bob Woods is playing really well. But this is pretty bad for Pierce until that line sort of pulls itself together, gets healthy, and again, you'd like to see him playing a little bit more too.
All right, Harmon, how in the hell does Bryce Hall only get 4 carries? Like, what am I supposed to make of Bryce Hall? Bryce, good Lord.
Man, it's a tough one, bro. I mean, we had a question earlier where it's like, yeah, Josh Kelly and Jerome Ford, Andy's telling you to play those guys over Breece Hall. Rough spot. Not only is he sharing carries with Dalvin Cook, for whatever reason. I mean, I never understood that signing to begin with, but it is what it is. Now we're also sharing carries on the Zach Wilson offense, not the Aaron Rodgers offense. So I actually don't have very many good things to tell you right now about Breece Hall. The bad feelings are alive and well.
Well, and you mentioned Cook. I mean, Vikings fans were just all up in everybody's mentions this summer about, hey, they're going to be fine. They got Alexander Mattison. Andy, what the hell's going on with Alexander Mattison?
Yeah, that's a rough one, and it's not like the arrival of Cam Akers it should be so frightening, right? He's been really inefficient for the most part since the injury. Still, the fact that they went out and added someone, not a great sign. Madison obviously not exactly excelling. He has like one opportunity here to really go off. Like, this is a very friendly matchup against the Chargers. The Chargers haven't really stopped much of anything. Again, huge total in the game. Madison has got to find the end zone here, or he's really in trouble, and you can see him slipping into a job share very soon.
All right, let's get one more in here, Matt. Miles Sanders, like what gets that right?
Andy Dalton? Is Andy Dalton going to get it right? This Panthers offense has looked like, like make your eyes fall out of your head bad. That's how bad it's been. I mean, Bryce Young looks small. They're not using him on QB sneaks. The offensive line's been disappointing. No receivers can get open. Frank Reich is already here in week 3. Like, we got to find ways to get Laviska Shenault involved. Usually that's the sign when you're like, let's get the gadgety positionless guy involved. Usually that's like, I'm already out of ideas and we're here in week 3. So, Miles Sanders, he's been catching more passes than normal, but that's about the only thing that's gone well so far.
Well, one thing that has gone well overall for you guys has been a real discussion that's happened now for 3 straight weeks about Najee Harris and what's going on at the running back position, right? And so as the Steelers go into Vegas to take on the Raiders, now we're suddenly looking at Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren and trying to figure out who the guy is there and how that's going to play out moving forward. Matt, like this is sort of surprising to me just because of who we thought Najee was coming out, who we think the Steelers are typically as an identity, what we expected from the offense. Like, the number of things that have gone wrong to get to this point it's pretty staggering.
A lot of things went wrong. And frankly, when they drafted Najee Harris, the talk out of the Steelers and all the beat writers was, and it's honestly, look, shout out to the Pittsburgh media, but some of these guys are like state-run media. They're clearly just like talking from the team. It's like, we need to fix our run game, so we're drafting Najee Harris. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of how the run game works. I mean, yeah, Najee Harris, even if he is like a really good back, the offensive line's never been good. The run game concepts under Matt Canada has never been good. So that's a big reason why Najee Harris is struggling. I wouldn't say he's the most efficient runner in the world. He's not the most explosive runner in the world, but he's just set up to fail by a poor ecosystem here. And then, yeah, with Jaylen Warren, like, the Steelers don't have a lot of pop right now on offense. Nothing has gone right for the Steelers so far, except for like one good George Pickens play, and that's it. But sometimes when Jaylen Warren gets the ball in his hands in space, it ends up looking pretty good for the Steelers offense, which is usually like the kiss of death. It's only a matter of time until they start to get desperate and they play Jaylen Warren more.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, Andy, because obviously this is the week they should get right, as much as it pains me to say that, right? Like, if you're a Steelers fan, you're excusing it, saying, well, they played two really good defenses. They're not playing a really good defense this weekend. So it feels like if things don't get right this weekend, that's when Steelers fans go truly out of their minds.
Well, that's a brave admission by you, first of all. I think the other thing that we have to worry about here is that, like, some of this change has already happened. You know, we're talking about whether Najee Harris can, like, hold on to a role. Jaylen Warren probably already has that receiving role. He probably has that third down role. He's caught 9 balls this year on 12 targets. Najee Harris has 3 catches on the season. So that's maybe already gone to Warren. You know, Harris has played something like 55% of the snaps, which is not what you were signing up for when you drafted him. I mean, you definitely drafted this guy, especially after what we saw last year. You drafted him because you're like, okay, I'm getting workload here. They're going to feed him. This is going to be 20 touches a game. He's the goal line guy. He's the every down guy. And that is just clearly not the case. Jaylen Warren has already carved out a role that has a lot of meaning in fantasy.
I can assure you of one thing. None of these guys that we're talking about right now are about to make our dual threat list. All right, let's take a look at our sweet and spicy picks presented by Popeyes. Just like Popeyes' new sweet and spicy wings are the perfect combination of flavors, we're looking at the top dual threat players in this weekend's slate of games. Matt, who you got as somebody you're looking at for dual threat?
Hey, listen. Really tough week 1 for Drake London. Didn't get off to a great start. But week 2, we're back, baby. The Drake London hype train is back on the tracks. His breakout season is back on schedule. And the reason I think Drake London is a dual threat here is because we know he's like a big downfield contested catch guy. He's a clasher in the vertical game in tight coverage. But people still don't appreciate enough. You could argue that sometimes maybe his own team doesn't appreciate it enough. Just how good of like an underneath separator he is. This guy gets open. He creates layup targets for his quarterback. He was trying to do it for Marcus Mariota last year. He's done it a lot for Desmond Ridder through the first few starts of his career. 25% target share for Drake London last week. That is good enough. And I think the important part here going into this week, Desmond Ridder right now quietly ranks 14th in catchable target rate. That's all we're asking out of Desmond Ridder. We don't need him to be a superstar. We just need him to be functional. I think he can be functional and perhaps even a little bit more for Drake London to have a big game against a very banged up secondary in Detroit this week.
I actually like that pick a lot. I'm going to go with maybe recency bias for what I saw just a few days ago, but I'm going to go with James Cook. Taking on Washington, that's a good Washington defense, nothing away from that. But James Cook really has it figured out. If you look at last week's game and the difference from week 1 to week 2, if you went back and watched week 1, I did for the Bills against the Jets, everything was out of sync. What we saw over the course of Sunday was not only the Bills beating up on a team that's just not as good as them, but also the Bills really finding a rhythm. And particularly the Raiders in week 1 did do well against the run. They had no answer for James Cook. I think James Cook has the opportunity to be a real key here. And what we saw out of week 2 that we didn't see from week 1, even from Josh Allen, was patience, the ability to take the check down, the ability to wait for the right opportunities. James Cook benefits from all of that. So I think James Cook is going to continue this ascension and really be a dual threat, especially against Washington. Andy, who you got in this one?
Yeah, give me Kyren Williams of the Rams playing at Cincinnati on Monday night. All he's done so far is rumble for 154 scrimmage yards, 4 touchdowns through his first 2 games. He dislodged Cam Akers from the starting role after the first week, and then dislodged him from the roster after the second week. Williams has played 80% of the snaps, like just a week ago. We're getting an all-situation workhorse here. He has 12 targets on the season. So there is a bunch of dual threat appeal here. He caught 42 passes in his final season at Notre Dame, so he entered the league sort of with that dual threat capability. And man, this week's matchup, Cincinnati currently ranks 31st against the run. They're giving up 5 yards per carry. The Rams offense is absolutely clicking. Stafford looks great. I think it's not going to surprise me if we see another couple touchdowns from Kyren in this one.
It's still shocking to hear the way we're talking about the Rams and the Bengals, each respectively, in that matchup. Thanks, fellas. Don't forget to grab a Popeyes sweet and spicy wing combo with an ice-cold Coca-Cola for tonight's game and every other game, too. Just head over to Popeyes.com or the Popeyes app to place an order for pickup or, I love this, delivery. All right, one other thing I love is every week we get to talk to Sal Vetri. He gives us unique fantasy advice here on the show that you can only get from Sal right here. These are his 7 key findings for week 3.
Welcome back, beautiful people. These are the 7 key findings that are going to help you win your week 3 fantasy matchup. Finding number 1 is the best spot of the week. And this takes us to the Kansas City Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco, who finds himself as a 13-point favorite in week 3 against the Bears. And now Kansas City in this game has a team total of 30.5 points, the highest on the week. Starting running backs in similar spots average over 16 fantasy points. Now in week 2, Pacheco saw his role quietly increase. He saw 63% of the rush attempts, a 16% increase from his week 1 usage. And he was efficient, producing 5.3 yards per touch. Expect over 13 fantasy points in week 3 started. Now finding number 2 takes us to a player who is trending up. And this is Kyren Williams, the second-year player out of Notre Dame for the Rams, who fell in the NFL draft because he had a poor 40-yard dash time. Now this is lesser known, but he was actually expected to be the starter last season, but then had a preseason foot fracture. But now he's a top 20 running back the rest of the season, because in week 2 without Cam Akers, he saw 97% of the snaps. This led to 24 opportunities, 10 targets, and 25 fantasy points for Williams. He's an every week starter in the Rams' number 5 ranked offense. Finding number 3 takes us to the pickup in play of the week. This player is Jerome Ford, who is now the Browns' starting running back, and Cleveland drafted him last season despite having 3 running backs under contract. This shows how much they liked him, and look, it's hard not to. He has solid speed and size, and in his final year of college produced over 1,500 yards while showing he was a capable pass catcher. Ford has been the backup to Nick Chubb all summer, and this was evident in week 2 after Chubb's injury, when Ford saw 90% of the running back carries and 20 opportunities. Now the Browns did re-sign Kareem Hunt, but just as a reminder, they chose Ford over Hunt all offseason. Finding number 4 takes us to the sell high candidate of the week. You need to trade away DJ Moore immediately after his 100-yard performance in week 2. He finished as the wide receiver 28 last week, and on the season so far ranks just 83rd in wide receiver usage. And despite the Bears trailing for the majority of their first 2 games, we've only seen 9 targets for DJ Moore, which is less than guys like Nick Westbrook and Calvin Austin. Look, Moore is a victim of poor play calling, a bad offensive line, and Justin Fields ranking bottom 3 in quarterback accuracy. Trade DJ Moore for somebody like Chris Godwin or Michael Pittman as soon as you can. Finding number 5 takes us to the sketchy spot of the week. And this week it's Brian Robinson, who has been great to start the season. He's 10th in running back usage and 3rd in fantasy points. But Robinson enters week 3 as a 7-point underdog to the Bills, which opens up potential usage for Antonio Gibson. Now, although Gibson hasn't produced in fantasy, he's still involved in this offense, playing 41% of the snaps and handling 93% of the 2-minute offense. If the Commanders fall behind in this game, we could see more Gibson, and as an underdog in his career, Brian Robinson averages just 9.2 points. Finding number 6 is let's take a deeper dive. And we'll be taking a deeper dive into Christian Kirk's week 2 performance of 16.5 fantasy points on 14 targets. Kirk saw his routes run increase from 66% week 1 to 84% week 2, which might make you wonder, did he take the wide receiver 2 job from Zay Jones? The answer is no. Zay Jones saw less routes run in this game because he got banged up at one point, and so did Calvin Ridley, who saw 21% fewer routes compared to week 1. So Kirk was the only healthy starting receiver for the entire game, which led to more snaps, routes, and targets. Expect his usage to drop in week 3 with Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley returning to full health. Now, finding number 7 takes us to an unexpected surprise. And this unexpected surprise is the Bucs offense. This team is 2-0, fueled by Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and new offensive coordinator Dave Canales. Canales was the quarterback's coach last year for the Seahawks, and he helped turn around Geno Smith's career, and he's doing that through 2 games with Baker Mayfield. Baker currently ranks number 1 under pressure and is 3rd in quarterback efficiency. And this has fueled Mike Evans to being the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy, and Rachaad White is 7th in running back usage. We need to adjust our preseason expectations on these players now that we've seen Canales' offense in action. And this makes guys like Chris Godwin a buy, and even second-year tight end Cade Otton a sneaky add. These have been the 7 key findings for this week. All you have to do now is take this information and put it to use in your week 3 matchup to smack around your competition.
All right, so now I get to chat with Sal, and I got a couple questions, but we're going to start with the most important one. Dude, you're such a nice guy. Are you trash talking? Like, I'm having a hard time. Like the smile and the joy. Like, are you throwing at people? Because like it feels like you're telling people smack people. But I don't know, man. Like, are you a trash talker?
I mean, I think everybody's got a little bit of a dark side. It comes out at certain times. I would say I lean on the side of not trash talking. Maybe 3 years ago you catch me, that's a different story. But yeah, it depends who I'm talking to. We get in the family group chats, it comes out a little bit.
I like the older, wiser Sal Vetri. But you just mentioned Baker Mayfield, and I think your breakdown's interesting on it, but it's also curious to me because when you watch Baker, there have been several times in his career where he has a couple of good games and it sort of falls off the cliff. Is there some level of concern still for you that this is just a moment in time for Baker, or are you really all in that this can be sustained?
Yeah, I think you have to have that concern, no doubt about it. I think the things that are in his favor outside of the new offensive coordinator that we talked about looking good play calling for him, he has a stable offensive line. It's not a perfect offensive line, but it's better that he's had in the past 1 to 2 years. And these are probably the best personnel pieces, the wide receivers in Evans and Godwin, that he's had in his career, maybe since his rookie year, but probably his career. So those pieces around him give you a little bit of confidence moving forward compared to the past years.
All right, you can find more Sal on the Yahoo Fantasy app throughout the week and follow him at Sal Vetri TFS on social media. We're going to bring Sal in with the rest of the guys, have a little bit of fun here with some play calling. So again, you guys, hashtag AskFFL. You can get some questions in and we'll figure out. Some of these questions have been delivered to specific people I'm seeing here. So I think the crowd's got their favorites. We'll start with Caleb here. Caleb asks, who do I start? Mahomes against the Bears or Cousins against the Chargers? Harmon, we'll let you take this one. Who you going with?
Oh boy. Oh man, is it scary that I'm really thinking about it? I mean, I'm thinking about like saying Kirk Cousins against the Chargers because game's got a super high total. We talked about it. That should be like, the shootout of the week. It's really exciting. Kirk Cousins has been on fire. The Chargers defense is terrible with a capital T. But at the same time, Andy Behrens himself said that his favorite team, the Chicago Bears, are a, quote, civic embarrassment. And Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. So maybe I just can't adjust to this whole thing, but I'm going Mahomes against the Bears.
Yeah, there's just something about the words Patrick Mahomes that I just immediately nod and say yes to. Let's pull up the next question. We'll send this one to Sal. And this one comes from Jason, not me, I promise. Although Jason, adorable dog, by the way. Travis Etienne or Gus Edwards for flex. I have Kyron Williams and James Cook as my running back starters. Sal, what do you think?
Well, Jason, the answer to your question is Travis Etienne because he's the best running back out of the 4 you just named. He is your number 1 running back. You have to start him. His role is elite. 76% of the snaps to start the season, 18.5 opportunities. And his biggest competition, Tank Bigsby, had 0 carries last week. This week, yet again, Etienne is going to be in a nice situation. He's a 9-point favorite. They have a nice team total. And running backs in similar situations average close to 17 fantasy points. That's your running back 1. Get him in your lineup.
So this is where, again, last week we established that, we're the best boy band in all of fantasy football. Now there's going to be some jealousy, some backbiting, because turns out the crowd has a favorite. Brian has specifically chimed in, does not care what the rest of us think. Brian says, at Andy Behrens, my brother. Should I start Nico Collins, Jahan Dotson, or Jordan Addison in my wide receiver 3 spot? A couple questions here, Andy. Do you have an actual brother named Brian? Do you have a fan club? And also, how would you answer this?
No, we're not actual family here. I hear you on this being how the band breaks up. We're at the peak of our run as a boy band. We're selling out stadiums, and now all of a sudden the petty jealousies creep in. I get it. We might actually, this guy and I might not be bros for very much longer if I blow this, because this is a really hard question. I like all these guys. I feel like Jahan Dotson just hasn't erupted yet. I feel like it's coming at some point. Love Nico Collins. I'm going to go Jordan Addison here. And it's a little bit dicey because it's not as if Jordan Addison is on the field all game, every snap, anything like that. But we've seen touchdowns in each of the first 2 weeks. And again, this game has so much appeal. The total is so high, and the Chargers' pass defense has been so poor. I just got to imagine that if Addison plays, 60% of the snaps, we're getting another couple of deep shots to him. He's got a really good chance to find the end zone. Probably better than the other 2 guys here.
I just got to stir the pot a little bit here because Harmon, earlier you were like waxing on about Nico Collins. You feel good about this? You want to defend your boy Nico in this situation?
Brian didn't ask me. He asked Andy Behrens, his brother. So I'm not helping Brian out. Sorry.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, well, fine. I'm not saying this is curious. By the way, Brian's the Yoko Ono of the world. Matt H asks, Matt H should answer this. Who would you pick for wide receiver 3 this week from these 3? Thanks. Drake London, Nico Collins, or Cortland Sutton? I'm going to say Nico Collins with that depth in my chest every time. What do you got, Matt H from Matt H?
How do you know this isn't me trying to send in Andy? I should have said Andy Barron's my brother. Can you help me out with my fantasy team? No, I would never have Cortland Sutton on my fantasy team. He is the guy that I'm not picking here. He is third on the list. It is tough for me between Drake London and Nico Collins, two guys I've hyped up so far on the show, two guys I've been hyping up for a long, long time. Ooh, this one's tough. I really want to kick this one down the road a little bit, but I'm thinking game environment wise, the Falcons-Lions game just seems like much more of a fantasy-friendly environment. I mean, the Houston Texans will be throwing in garbage time most likely against the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend. Like, that's not a bad environment for fantasy, but indoors in Detroit, Jared Goff and the boys always put up points. And I think they will bring Arthur Smith out of his shell a little bit. There'll be more passing opportunities there, more targets for Drake London. So I will go Drake London, but I had to filibuster quite a long time to tell you one of those two guys, and definitely not Cortland Sutton.
I appreciate that. All right, let's get one in here for Sal. DVP asks Sal, he didn't ask specifically Sal, I did. Jerry Jeudy or Matt Breida? Hashtag AskFFL. What do you got for us, Sal?
All right, I'm gonna make DVP's night a whole lot better here. Maybe this will avoid a confrontation with your significant other, a fight. Just don't play Matt Breida tonight. It's gonna ruin your night. So that just gives us Jerry Jeudy. He played 68% of the snaps in his return. That's pretty good, not great, but he was out there for almost every single passing play. Just 2 less routes run than Cortland Sutton for the team lead. 5 targets, and it's probably only going to get better from there as he gets healthy, which could be this week as their touchdown underdogs going to have to throw the ball more. Just give me Jerry Jeudy almost by default here.
Let's get one more in. This one goes to our guy, Andy. Way Beyond the Arc asks, Big Mike Williams or Michael Pittman already starting Keenan Allen and Josh Kelly? What do you think?
Yeah, that's an interesting predicament that you've put yourself in. Michael Pittman obviously tied to a little bit of a murky quarterback situation right now. Not that it matters necessarily in terms of his projection. That should be a fun game. But I am once again, and this feels weird because I'm going to end up telling you, you've got 3 Chargers in your starting lineup, but I'd go with Williams here, and I'm banking on that game like reaching that point total that we've talked about several times. I think that's going to be a really fun shootout. I want as many investments there as I possibly can get.
Keep your questions coming, not just tonight, but all weekend long. We'll keep answering them. In the meantime, speaking of wide receivers, Puka prominence possibly and potentially persists. We'll tell you about it next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. You know the guys, Matt Harmon, Andy Behrens. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out with you all the way up to kickoff to get you ready for tonight and the entire weekend. And speaking of the entire weekend, guys, we've talked a lot about injuries for tonight, but let's take a look at the injury report coming out of practice today and who we are monitoring. You can see it here. David Montgomery with a thigh issue, Jaylen Waddle in concussion protocol, Christian Watson we've talked a little bit about with the hamstring, Austin Eckler, obviously somebody that has talked on our network about the ankle issue. So take a look at some of this today, particularly when you look at Waddle in concussion protocol. Matt, what are we supposed to do with Waddle right now if we're looking at him in the lineup?
You know, it's tough because Waddle was already kind of entering this week a little bit dicey. He actually ranks 5th in wide receiver expected fantasy points and 43rd in targets per route run among guys who have 10 plus targets so far this year. Like, he hasn't been getting the usage that people would have expected. Not ideal there. And now he's in the concussion protocol. I would make plans to have another wide receiver available that you can trust this week.
It just feels like this year, Andy, there have been so many big dynamic moments from wide receivers, but it's hard because this seems to be happening a lot, right? Like, so it's like you have to have a deep bench of somebody that can get you double-digit points, which in a deep league, by the way, is easier said than done.
Yeah, and it certainly wasn't that easy at the wide receiver position either, right? Like, I felt like that was a position in drafts that just sort of fell off a cliff at a certain point. Like, you really... For me, you hit Nico Collins and you drafted him, and then it was just like a wasteland after that. So I don't know that people have extreme depth at wide receiver. I do think, at least in Waddle's situation, it's a concussion, and if he's able to return to practice, he's probably going to return to like his full workload. This isn't like a soft tissue thing where you have to worry about them managing him if he plays. I think if he plays, you probably have to lean on him.
By the way, I should mention, not on the injury, but the reports out there all over the Trayvon Diggs ACL injury in practice today is the expectation. That obviously impacts the Cowboys defense. I think it's just a little different when we're talking about offensive guys versus defensive guys, but want to make sure we at least give some thought there, right? Like, does that change the way either of you would play the Cowboys defense, Andy?
I mean, they still have Micah Parsons, and he's still just an absolute game wrecker, right? Like, he's the trigger for every good thing that happens for that defense fantasy wise, right? The things that drive it really are sacks and turnovers, and he's the real disruptive force there.
Well, one thing I know is that Austin Eckler is on this list. I also know that Matt Harmon hangs out with Austin Eckler all the time. And in fact, rather than have all of us talk about Eckler, how he feels and what he's going through, this is a little bit of what he said specifically about that with Matt on Eckler's Edge. Check it out.
As far as me, dealing with the ankle, and I've dealt with ankles in the past. And so you just got to get it to a point where you feel good, where it's taped up, and you can actually feel like, okay, if I get tackled, it's not going to be re-aggravated and set me back to where I was before, where I could barely walk on it. And so it's like, it's nothing that's going to be like, like he's out for, several months type of thing. Mm-hmm. It's a day-to-day, week-to-week type of situation. And I like the progress that I've made so far. So hopefully back sooner than later.
So this is a day-to-day type of situation.
Exactly. And it's for me too. And just for all players, man, it's so annoying, especially when it's like nagging things like an ankle. It's like, I can still go in there and crush like a leg workout, but I can't run right now, something like that, but it's like, okay, let's continue to keep working. You got to stay patient because you can't speed it up by wanting it to be better. That's not how the body works. You have to make sure you don't skip steps, get the proper treatment. Because if you didn't know, football is a violent sport. And when you're dealing with injuries, it's not the best because you tend to try to, stay away from that area. But, guys don't care if you're hurt or not. If you're on the field, it's full go. And so you got to keep that in mind when we're going through these and coming back and deciding when to come back. But I think we're making progress, man. I'll just say that.
Always love Austin Eckler's honesty when he hangs out with Harmon. By the way, should update everybody, he did not practice today, so we'll see tomorrow where that goes. And I know that fantasy football owners all the way up till Sunday morning will be keeping their eye on their phone for the latest and greatest update they can get on it. So we will now move on from somebody not on the field to somebody making dynamic things happen on the field. A little bit of fantasy face-off, because it's the second straight week that we've had a Ram in the face-off, because Puka Nacua, although it sounds like Hakuna Matata, and I feel like every time I'm listening to like a Lion King song, Puka Nacua's rise is absolutely undeniable. It continues to absolutely destroy. The real question, though, is Andy's got him ranked as wide receiver 7 currently. Matt has him at 15. So before we get to the face-off, Matt, why do you hate Puka Nacua?
Absolutely outrageous, bro. Absolutely outrageous for you to say I hate Puka. I guarantee you I knew about Puka. I was hyping up Puka before Andy. So I don't want to hear this like, oh, Andy Behrens is higher on Puka Nacua than me. I mean, give me a break.
By the way, I'm old enough to remember when people wore the Puka shell necklaces and thought that was cool in high school. So, old guy in the block.
It was cool.
Yeah. Andy said it was cool. Are we like, if this continues, does the show just start rocking Puka necklaces? Just maybe a Puka segment with Puka necklaces?
I'm willing. If he lives up to his, I've got him wide receiver 6 now. Every time I look at my wide receiver ranks, Puka goes up another spot. If that happens, I'm definitely bringing back the Puka shell. Sure.
If he goes to 1, the whole show wears Puka shells and we try and get him on. All right, so let's do some fantasy face-off. You know the drill here. It's going to be either or. We'll give you Puka Nacua or this guy. So we'll start with Andy. Puka or Keenan Allen?
Yeah, well, spoiler, I'm gonna end up taking Puka over pretty much everybody in the field because I've already told you that there's only 5 guys that I have above him, and Keenan Allen not one of them. I think Keenan Allen's a great start this week. He's in that shootout matchup that we keep talking about. Nacua, though, come on. The target totals are crazy. This is 35 targets in 2 games. We've literally never seen it from a rookie. 15 targets in his first game, and then it got better in the second game. The guy's on pace for over 200 catches right now, and he's facing a team that's in certainly backs against the wall, a little bit of disarray for Cincinnati. Stafford is playing as well as any quarterback in the game, certainly throwing it as well as any quarterback in the game. So I'm going Puka here. I'm leaning on volume.
All right, Matt, what about you on Puka versus Devonte Smith?
Oh, I'm going Devonte Smith on this one. Look, I love what I've seen out of Puka. Co-sign everything Andy just said. I mean, he's so technically sound for a rookie receiver, and he was this way at BYU too. He could beat man coverage, and it was very impressive, and he's beating man coverage, and he is so, like, you just can tell that Stafford trusts this guy, and Stafford, when he trusts somebody, dials in. But Devonte Smith is white hot right now, and I think this matchup against the Bucs is going to be really interesting for both of these wide receivers. So yeah, give me Devonte Smith by just a hair here.
All right, let's see if this one tempts Andy to take somebody other than Puka. Puka? I love the fact that these are names I'm giving you now. Puka or CD? I can't believe I'm saying that. Puka or CD, Andy? What do you got?
Wow, you're bringing out the big gun here. Puka or CeeDee Lamb? I will say that this is finally, we're talking about a player who's actually worthy of having his name mentioned in the same sentence as Puka Nacua. Lamb obviously coming off an 11-catch game, facing a defense that ranks bottom 3rd against the pass. It's a great spot for him. I'll give you that. I can understand how someone might mistakenly rank Lamb over Nacua, as perhaps Matt has done. It's still wrong, but I get it. I think Puka's going to continue to be fed. I don't see much of a way to stop this. By the way, Puka has joined the Breakfast Club. Puka is now part of the Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford Breakfast Club thing. Like, he's a made guy at this point.
I love the pass. I feel like I'm at dinner with my mom and dad when I was a kid. The passive-aggressive little digs at each other here is spectacular. All right, one more. We'll go to Matt on this one. Puka or DK? All right, we going abs or we going Puka?
We're going Puka on this one. Look, really like DK Metcalf. Of course, he's been playing great this year. He's actually like routing guys up, and he looks really technically refined. Love to see that from DK Metcalf's game. It's a kind of an evolution there, but I don't think Seattle is going to have to do too much to beat the Carolina Panthers. I think they can rely on Kenneth Walker. They can spread the ball around a little bit. I mean, my God, Andy Dalton's starting on the other side of this thing. So in a just environment right now where Puka is absolutely eating, and he's playing up to the production. That's the thing. People are like, oh, it's a fluke. No, he's playing up to this level of a production right now. Like, he looks that good as an isolated individual. He's definitely the guy I'm taking here over DK Metcalf in this one.
By the way, for all the jokes I've made, you guys have both made an important point about Puka and why I think it lasts. When you have a veteran quarterback and a smart coach that have found rhythm with a young player and it gets hot, it takes something to turn it to not, right? Like, as long as it stays hot, and sure, teams are going to look at it and try and figure out how to defend him, but the Rams have made it clear that they are comfortable with him in big situations. Stafford has made it clear he's comfortable with him in big situations. I think this shows you that you're going to see that throughout the rest of the year, because this isn't young guy getting to know young guy. This is seasoned vet and brilliant coach figuring out how to use young guy. Now it's up to everybody else to try and figure out how to stop it. They're a step ahead. I think the usage will continue throughout the course of the year. So good work by you guys on that, and I'd love to see the Puka love continue. I don't have a lot of love for the next segment, because this is the time every single week where I feel like a golden god. It's like the beginning of a Raiders game. I feel like everything's good, and by the end of it, I realize my life is just an abject disaster. You see it there. It's primetime picks. So we pick somebody from each night of primetime action. Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night. For the second straight week, we have 2 Monday night games. We go snake draft. The team in last place, that's me yet again, picks first, and then we go through the whole process. You can see the standings here. America liked my picks last week. America loved my picks last week. I was cocky last week, and I wasn't even in this thing. I wasn't, but there's hope. There's hope for me because now each of you has won once. I'm only 1 game back. I'm not 2 games back in 1 game, and all of a sudden, snaps for this. It's Harmon, go ahead, chime in. No.
Fitz, who did you bribe? Like, were you in Dan Harris's pockets, like giving him a check that we buried this thing in the C block? I mean, like, who did you have to pay off to get this segment buried this late in the show? I mean, give me a break, bro.
The football gods have reminded me not to rub my mouth too soon because I spent all summer reminding everybody of my championship accomplishments, and now in every single league I'm in, I am getting beat down like a fat kid playing dodgeball in 5th grade, and I can say that because I know what that felt like personally. I'm just saying. Okay, let's get to this week's primetime picks draft now that I've given you my trauma. And shocking, breaking news, I'm picking first. And so we have Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, 2 Monday night games to pick from. And I'm going for Thursday Night Football out of the gates because I think it's going to be a slaughter and because Christian McCaffrey's name is there. So I typed in Christian McCaffrey from the group text, and I'm so frail, I questioned myself for 3 minutes before I pressed send on it. I questioned Christian McCaffrey because my confidence is shaken. Andy, you're on the clock. Who you got next?
Don't be trying to give my pick.
Matt's
Andy.
next.
Matt's
next.
Yeah,
Matt's next.
I'm the champ.
Andy's
here.
the next pick. You know, my bad.
Andy, you like how Fitz at the top of the show is like, so if this is gonna be a blowout, do you think Christian McCaffrey is like not gonna get the work or what? And then we pulled the rug over him here because you know what's gonna happen? McCaffrey's gonna get 12 touches. They're gonna take him off the field. And Elijah Mitchell's gonna run this clock out. 25 carries for Elijah Mitchell tonight. So the curse has been put on Christian McCaffrey. I will tell you who's actually going to crush the Giants tonight on the 49ers side, and it's Deebo Samuel, who I'm confidently taking with my second pick here. Deebo Samuel has run 81 routes. Shout out to my guy Jacob Gibbs on this stat. 81 routes without Brandon Ayuk on the field since the start of the 2021 season. 41% targets per route run, 25 catches for 428 yards. That's 5.1 yards per route run. 5.1 yards per route run right into the heart of Fitz. I love it. Debo for my second pick here.
12 touches for 6 touchdowns, and I'll still take that. That's what McCaffrey does in the first half. 12 touches, 6 touchdowns, and now Andy's on the clock. What do you got?
First of all, I want to just remind people, if you're playing the Fitz drinking game at home, he did mention his fantasy championship from last year, so you have to chug. I'm gonna take AJ Brown here. I think if you're gonna give me like a diva wide receiver in a week following a sideline blow up, yes, that's easy money. I want it. He's still AJ Brown. He had a touchdown negated by like a Rashad Penny holding call last week. He's had other near misses on deep shots. I think it is definitely happening for him here. Tampa Bay's pass defense currently ranks 24th in the league, and it would be much worse if my Bears were able to exploit absolutely any opportunities at all last week. I think Philly carves him up here. I think it's a huge day for AJ Brown. And then my next pick, and this is kind of a bouquet that I'm giving to Fitz here. I'm going to take Josh Jacobs. And listen, I've heard it from people all week. I know that they're disappointed with the -2 rushing yards. I'm gonna choose to focus on the fact that Josh Jacobs still has like 35 touches on the season. He's the centerpiece of the offense. He's the rushing champ. And he's about to face Pittsburgh defense that is allowing 193 rushing yards per game, 5.5 per carry, and the most fantasy points to opposing running back. So I think it's a great spot for Jacobs.
Single-handedly the best pick you've ever made. Go ahead, Matt. I'm just sitting back here waiting.
I love how Andy tried to throw all this shade at me like, oh, Harmon's ranking CeeDee Lamb ahead of Puka Nacua. How ridiculous. And he can't adjust to the new reality that Josh Jacobs was so last year, and the new hotness this year is Kyren Williams, Rams running back. He talked about it earlier in the show, man. Kyren Williams, dual threat guy, played 96% of the snaps last week. Cam Akers, they showed him the door. They traded Cam Akers for a conditional pick swap in 2026. What are we even going to be on the planet in 2026? Are we even still going to have a show in 2026? I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, for God's sakes, but 2026, it meant nothing. That's how easy they were ready to get rid of Cam Akers. Just get him on the roster because Kyren Williams has been that good. He's been that guy. I expect them to beat the Bengals on Monday night. I expect Joe Burrow not to play. Kyren's going to get plenty of work here.
I am back on the clock. And I'm just telling you now, sweet baby Jesus. I think it was last week when we were picking Eagles receivers. I picked A.J. Brown, confidently picked A.J. Brown. And I did not confidently pick Devonte Smith. And A.J. Brown did nothing, and Smith did everything. And so now I'm watching you pick A.J. Brown, realizing I'm about to pick Smith. If this goes the opposite way, they don't make enough Jaegers to get me through it. They don't. I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm gonna roll around my basement singing Fireball by Pitbull while I just continue to take those little nips and work my way through it. All right. Cause I'm taking Smith, and this better work for me. I snake around. I get the next pick here. And you know what? I need some love. I need some help. And the only game left for me is Sunday Night Football. The only night left for me is Sunday Night Football. And I try not to pick my beloved Raiders. I do. But I need help. And help comes in one form. It comes in the form of Devonte Adams. Like Devonte Adams at least was back up in the share last week. Week 1, it was a little invisible. Week 2, it looked like he and Jimmy G were getting on the same page. I do think that there's going to be opportunities for Adams against this defense. I think there's opportunities for Jimmy G against this defense to at least get a couple of touchdowns in the air. So I'm taking Devonte Adams with a level of confidence on a scale of 1 to 10 that's a negative 37. That's where I am on it. But if anybody can be my slump buster, it will be Devonte Adams. And that means, Matt, you're back on the clock. And I'm sure you're going to pick somebody that destroys my heart.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday Night Football, some dreadful options here. But I think one guy who stands out that can just absolutely destroy that pitiful excuse for a Raiders defense is George Pickens, baby. 70-yard touchdown all on his own last week. This guy can absolutely burn. Kenny Pickett's going to finally have some time because they've got Max Crosby. I get that. He's a game wrecker, but they got nobody else on defense, Fitz. And you know it in your heart of hearts, in your donut-crusted hearts. You know that they've got nobody there on defense that the Steelers offense has to worry about other than Max Crosby. George Pickens gets loose for 150-plus yards and takes my title home this week.
Andy, just wrap this. I've got nothing to say because he's right. Damn it, Andy, just get out. Get me out of this pain.
150. I like that. I'll take that. So I have to pick from the Thursday game, and I hope everybody knows that I'm not touching any Giants here. There's no Giant who's tempting me. I'm gonna go George Kittle. Every other Niners playmaker has made a little bit of noise. At some point in the first 2 weeks, I feel like it finally comes around to Kittle here. We've got no Brandon Ayuk in this one, so that obviously there's going to be some volume that goes Kittle's way. We're also talking about the tight end who basically made Brock Purdy last year, right? Who caught 7 touchdown passes from him. Kittle wasn't entirely healthy entering the season, but then last week, really strong indicator that he was back. He played 55 of 57 possible snaps. So I think he's healthy right now. He's going to have to see some volume in this one. I think he finds the end zone.
I'm lightly rooting for you because I might or might not have a Darren Waller, George Kittle touchdown parlay in tonight's action. Okay, we'll let you guys see how we did in this. America, don't back me. Just don't. Just vote for somebody else because it never works for any of us. But we'll let you know next week. When I've tied the score, I will come back. The comeback will start this week. Speaking of comebacks that need to start, I got to at least mention here that the Bengals suck, and I can't figure out why. And everybody tells me they start slow every year, and it's fine. But guys, are we really convinced that the Bengals are going to be just fine? I mean, I know what 1-7 in Joe Burrow's career in the first 2 games, so he always starts slow. But man, Andy, it's looked ugly so far.
Yeah, it's one thing to start slow when Joe Burrow is healthy. But when we're coming off a game in which we saw, especially late in that thing, Joe Burrow grimacing, limping, had one of those little massage guns that you buy at the airport that he was taking to his calf. Like, he's clearly not comfortable right now. And we have an open question as to whether he's even going to play on Monday night. That is a worry. And pretty much every NFL offense is really just a house of cards that can collapse if the quarterback can't play. It's also like there's some skepticism out there, certainly among people who set betting lines about whether he's going to play, right? Because we saw the line in the game move like 4.5 points in a blink, just as soon as Zach Taylor made those sort of non-committal comments earlier in the week about Burrow. So I won't say that I have long-term worries about this offense necessarily, because I like it's a calf issue. I think it gets better in time. We're still talking about a young core that's amazing with Higgins and Chase and Burrow, but man, I don't feel great about it this weekend. I certainly don't feel great about it if we have to see like Jake Browning behind center for the Bengals.
Yeah, Matt, wouldn't you panic a little bit if you've got Jamar right now in your lineup? Like, who's throwing him the ball?
Yeah, I mean, Jake Browning, give me a break. I don't think that's ideal. And I think a big problem here is, like Andy said, he'll get better in time, but the only way that Joe Burrow's going to get healthy is if he doesn't play. Like, I think if you're the Bengals, you have to take the long view here, and you got to think like, okay, maybe we get in a little bit of hole. I realize that we need to win some games here, but we want Joe Burrow around in December. We want him in late November and certainly into January, where they hope they're going to be playing. They're not on pace to do it right now, so I think they have to sit him. And my biggest concern for Jamar Chase, who, yeah, if Burrow's out there, I feel better about it, but they haven't adjusted the offense to the fact that their quarterback can't push the ball downfield because he has no power coming out of his lower body. I charted his first 2 games, his 2 most commonly run routes, 9 routes, and deep out routes. Like, Joe Burrow's not going to be able to hit those throws routinely like he normally can.
I think a lot of people are missing one word. He might be healthy, but he's not going to be healthy enough. Like, he's not going to get back to the point that he's healthy enough unless he gets some serious time off. Okay, we're not taking any serious time off. We're getting to the most exciting electric part of the whole show. Hurry up, offense. You guys know what we're going to do here. We're going to put your questions up. We're going to put a 25-second timer on, and then we're going to see if the guys freak out every time the whistle blows. That's the main objective here. Let's pull the first question up, and it comes from Brian. Brian asks, Madison or Javonte Williams, 1 point PPR. Matt, what do you got for us on this one?
Yo, I'm really not trying to play anybody from the Broncos offense. Number one, not an ideal matchup. Vic Fangio over there. And by the way, like, they're splitting up the running back rotation. They're splitting up the wide receiver. Like, nobody ran more than 81% of the routes in the game last week. So give me Alexander Madison a potential bounce back spot against Brandon Staley's joke of a defense.
All right, next question coming up on the list comes from Copper's Dad 55, and he asks, tough times over here. Feel you on that one, buddy. Breida tonight or C. Reynolds? Andy, what do you think on this? It's brutal.
Yeah, this is just a sort of vomit-inducing question. There's no right answer here, right? Like, I hope we can all agree there's no right answer here. Craig Reynolds might see volume because they seem desperate not to give it to Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm probably gonna go Breida here just to get the pain out of the way, because it's gonna hurt either way.
Yeah. By the way, that's just concede the week. Just wait till next week. You're just like, you know what? I'll check the app next week. All right, let's go to the next question on the list. We got Dominic coming in saying, Dominic says, Drake London, Terry McLaurin, or Gabe Davis in my flex. Matt, what do you think?
Well, you spelled Terry McLaurin's name wrong, so we can't pick Terry McLaurin. Those are the rules of the game. I do actually think that Drake London is the best option of the 3 here. Of course, I always love Terry, but Drake London, again, is just set up so well. Talked about it many times over the show. I like that game environment for fantasy football. Boom.
Oh, look at that. Are you like the grammar police over here, by the way? All right, Holly coming in. Next question.
Show some respect. Get the guy's names right. Get the guy's names right.
Chris Godwin, Jordan Addison, Drake London, Nico Collins. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, again, love Jordan Addison in that game. Love what I expect from that game in total. So I'm going to play him. I'm going to play Chris Godwin, also tied to an offense that's been pretty frisky. And then it comes down to Drake London and Nico Collins. I'm going to go, I like all these options. I'm going to go Nico Collins, though.
I like Frisky coming back into the show. That's when you know things are good. When you've got Frisky coming in as a descriptor, we have really hit our rhythm. All right, let's get to the next question on the board in the hurry-up offense. Jim asks, Burrow or Stafford? Simple question, complicated answer. Matt, what you got?
Yeah, play the guy who's not dealing with a calf injury right now. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to play Matthew Stafford, all right? We don't even know if Joe Burrow's going to play in that game. Honestly, buddy, you're lucky that you drafted Joe Burrow and you have a very good alternative there in Matthew Stafford. So you are lucky. That's 5 seconds I left on the clock.
I also appreciate the fact that you stretched a simple answer into that much of the clock. We appreciate that work for the drama and suspense. The next question on the board comes from Craig. Half-point PPR, Michael Pittman Jr., Breece Hall, Jaylen Warren. Andy, what you got?
Yeah, this is another one of those Breece Hall questions where I'm not even really thinking about him, and I feel terrible about it. I think he's really talented, but we've got a PPR aspect to this. They're not throwing to him. Zach Wilson can't throw to running backs anyway, so I'm not that interested in Hall, not in a job share. I'm gonna go Michael Pittman here. Again, I think he's kind of impervious to whatever the quarterback choice is.
Next question on the board comes from J Pro Designs with a Z. Says start Judy or Addison 1 point PPR. Harmon, what do you think?
Yeah, like I said earlier, not too interested in anything that's going on in the Denver Broncos offense right now. Wristband or no wristband? What will we do? No one cares. I do care about the Chargers-Minnesota Vikings game. Jordan Addison, I'd love to see him playing a little bit more, but I do think the big play potential is there. I'm chasing it this week.
All right, let's get to the next question on the board. We're flying through this offense. Astronaut Mike Dexter can neither confirm nor deny if he's actually an astronaut. Kenneth Gainwell, Elijah Moore, or Dameon Pierce in flex. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like if you're really an astronaut, you don't have to go around telling people you're an astronaut. So probably no. But I digress. I'm not gonna go Gainwell. We don't know exactly where he is in the hierarchy right now, but he's probably behind Swift. Pierce has been really dicey. I'll feel better about this if it's any kind of PPR, but I'm gonna go Elijah Moore.
I will forgive the delay of game on that because the astronaut line was so good. One more comes into us, and it comes from Tyler. Tyler asks, do I start Brock Sturdy or Watson on Sunday? Harmon, what do you think?
Oh, geez, we're not starting Deshaun Watson. Yo, Watson's got such a good matchup, right? The Titans are the biggest pass funnel in the NFL. They're allowing the highest average depth of target. Do you have any faith that Deshaun Watson can take advantage of that? I don't. Go with Brock Sturdy. I'll allow a pun on the player's name, even if you didn't spell it correctly.
See, that's what makes it great. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, not just tonight, but every single Thursday. We are always here at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific to keep you up with the latest analysis and projections. You can look at everything in the app. You can check out the podcast at Yahoo Fantasy throughout the course of the week. We're also with you Sunday morning for the latest on player injuries, and even better, our own Scott Pianowski will be answering your last-minute lineup questions on social media. Just keep hashtagging us all the time. Hashtag AskFFL. One thing I can promise you is all three of us are thankful for the people that watch, and we're thankful for the opportunity to try and answer these questions. Good luck to all of your teams in week 3. Of course, for everybody behind the scenes that works their tails off to make this show happen, Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for hanging out with us on Fantasy Football Live.